Hello, fellow Equatorians. This is Sabata with the Equatorial Advocacy Foundation. I'm, of course, the Director for Resource Mobilization and Project Management. On the 19th day of April 2020, I have come out on a show like this, and I did analyze what Dr. Carol Berger had written on a research paper that she gave a title to, and the title of that research paper was Ethnocide Used as a Tool for State Building. So basically what Carol Berger was saying was that the government of South Sudan is implementing policies that she had called ethnocide policies, that is ethnic cleansing, as a tool to build the state of South Sudan. And she did say that those policies were implemented intentionally. And the government of South Sudan, through the spokesperson, came out and condemned that statement and said that statement is untrue. And on April 19th, 2020, I did analysis of that paper, and I said that Carol Berger made that claim based on expertise of a person who understands that when policies are implemented, the policies carry certain effects on the communities or onto people. And Carol Berger, based on her understanding, she felt that those policies were carried intentionally. I then, on that analysis that I did on April 19th, 2020, I did say that, well, the policies could be carried without any intention to carry ethnic cleansing, but there are certain times when a policy would be carried and would eventually yield unintended consequences. It will bring what is called unpredicted consequences. And based on what I was saying, I was basically making the argument that the government could be carrying those policies without any intention to carry ethnic cleansing, but eventually might end up producing ethnic cleansing. That was on that show that I did on 19th April 2020. On this show, I would like to basically make some clarification on some specific policies that are now getting injected, and leave these to Equatorians to decide whether really ethnic cleansing could happen, whether it was intentionally based on what Carol Berger was saying, Dr. Carol Berger was saying, or whether it could be unintentionally, as I have stated on the analysis that I did on April 19th. Now, we know for a fact right now that there are thousands and thousands of cattle that are brought into the Equatorial Area, areas of Lobonok, Pageri, Kajukeji, and also along the Jubaye Road. And these cattle are accompanied by a number of cattle rustlers who are well armed and are carrying heavy arsenals. Now, there are allegations that these cattle belong to government officials who are wearing uniform in the current government of South Sudan, who have decided to bring this cattle by use of military vehicles, and basically, of course, are having those cattle rustlers to take care of those cattle in those equatorial areas. Now, how can that eventually down the road, if not taken care of well, could result in ethnic cleansing? We know very well that these cattle rustlers are well armed and are carrying heavy arsenals. And eventually what is going to happen is they are going to develop their kraals. These cattle rustlers are very uncivilized and very uneducated people. They are going to establish their kraals. They like to live in kraals. And eventually they are going to move their families there, and of course going to expand the kraal. That is basically developing what is called a community. All right. And eventually they are going to start interacting with the local population. They will eventually have to go to the markets to purchase some items. They will take some of their items to the markets. Of course, they would like to do all the activities that the local population also are engaged in, and they will interact with the population through various activities, be it trade or be it some other sociocultural activities. And eventually they would also want to make money. All right. Now, how will these people make money? We know for a fact that what they are doing is they are basically looking after cattle. Whether they are getting paid by the owners of the cattle who are government officials or not, heaven knows. But we know that these people live by certain cultural norms that allow them to rob. It's very normal. These cattle rustlers, they live by robbing belongings that don't belong to them. And in their places of origin, it is acceptable. They go to neighboring communities, they rob, and in the process of robbing, they engage in fights. Those who get killed are always honored as heroes. Those who get away bring those items that are robbed to the communities, and their communities glorify them for doing those kind of things. All right, these are facts. I'm not making them up. Study about their social lives. So what then that means is, as they establish themselves and settle and make themselves comfortable in the equatorial area, they are going to engage in what is called lootings, especially at night areas. If anybody is doubting that, ask people from Nimule. They will tell you, because the same thing has happened in Nimule. There had been influx of cattle rustlers in Nimule in 1991, and there is another one also in 2013. And what the people of Nimule saw was pretty much nightmare. There had been situation of properties that are unoccupied, torn down, things like zinc, the roofs are being taken out, are sold, because these things get sold in the local markets by those blacksmiths who make canoons and girdle and these kind of things. And they also take windows and doors and sell these things in the local markets. So those kind of activities that were exercised in Nimule had actually created a form of insecurity in Nimule, because the local population in Nimule were not able to contain the situation. They brought the situation up to their local governments, but their local governments were not able to contain the situation. They brought it up to the higher central authorities, but those higher central authorities ignored those calls. So basically the same thing could happen in areas of the other parts of the equatorial area, like the Lobonok, Pageri, Kajukeji, Jubayei Road. And once those communities settle in those areas and start interacting with these people, then people will start seeing these acts of robberies happening. And these people, given they are highly illiterate, they can hardly listen to any other authority coming to them to tell them that what they have done is wrong. They stand their ground and they fight back. They only listen to their employers, if I could call them employers. Yes, those are the owners of the cattle. They only listen to the owners of the cattle. So basically what is happening is this influx of cattle and the cattle rustlers that come into the equatorial area is a very heavy insecurity in the making to the people of the equatorial area. Now, if these people responded the same way people in Nimule responded, just by giving up their places and going to the northern part of Uganda to settle in those areas in the northern part of Uganda and taking settlements in refugee camps, then what is going to happen is those areas, those territories of the Equatoria would pretty much be vacated because people are going to become very frustrated. There is going to be what is called cultural conflicts. The cattle rustlers are not going to understand the norms that people live by. They are going to carry out lootings, and those exercises will not be able to be coordinated through any platform where justice can be brought, because remember, we are basically living in an anarchy. There is completely what is called absence of government mechanisms to adjudicate justice and all this. So even if these cattle rustlers start misbehaving, where are the people of Equatoria going to expect justice to be brought? Whether it is people who fought in the market, whether somebody else getting looted, where are the mechanisms that are set forth by the government to see into it that justice is being coordinated through courts or local courts or things like that? Nothing, completely. So basically, we are living in a situation where if the communities are having misunderstanding, it is up to the communities to figure out on their own way how to settle their issues, be it through chiefs or whatever mechanism they can use. And that is a recipe to creation of insecurity in the equatorial area. And as a result of that, the people of Equatoria might end up vacating their places and making it comfortable now for those who are coming, the cattle rustlers, to now settle in those areas. So basically now you can see Equatorians going out, all right, to northern part of Uganda or to some parts of Congo, making it comfortable to the incoming cattle rustlers to settle, you see. So basically this is bringing what Carol Berger had argued into reality, all right? Now, whether this is done intentionally, a technique just to get these people to go out in order to have some new people come and settle, we don't know. But as far as I am concerned, from the Equatorial Advocacy Foundation, the earlier message that I gave on April 19th was that it could have been done unintentionally, but eventually this is going to be the result that is going to be attained, which Carol Berger had actually talked about. So what I would like to communicate to Equatorians is that it is no time right now to pretend as though ethnic cleansing will not happen. Okay, this is a threat to what is called existence of Equatorians in the equatorial area. There is no point of pretending as though this thing is not happening. It is happening. The Mahdi are already an example, and soon you are going to see more and more examples. Now, if Equatorians have not yet come up with mechanism to stop that, then it will be foolish. It will be like a person who has cancer cells replicating in the body, and instead of rushing to the doctor to have those cancer cells taken care of or the replication be slowed down, pretends as though nothing is happening, then it's just going to be a matter of time when that person is going to exist, to cease existence. The same way, this is going to make what is called Equatoria to cease existence in the equatorial area if Equatorians don't come together to see how they can stop this. The other thing that I would like to hint is basically going straight to the authorities of the country, that this kind of policies, these kind of things, if allowed to continue to happen, what might end up happening is this. There could be eruption of what is called fighting units, more of like militia, erupting from various equatorial areas to fight back. All right, and I don't know if the government really wants such kind of a situation to eventually come to be, because if anybody who wants to doubt this claim that I've just made, I would like to remind that person who wants to doubt that these various equatorial boys who have picked up arms, including the Arrow boys, who had picked up arms against the order of the state and ended up joining the political organizations like IO and South Sudan National Democratic Movement for Change and National Salvation Front, and so forth and so forth. Think of how those boys came to existence. Those boys came to existence simply because of the fact that they thought that there is a policy of occupation happening in their territories, and they really wanted, according to them, they wanted to protect their lands and protect their citizens from what is called occupation by people who are originally not from their territories. This is basically, is that not what the Arrow boys came out and spoke about it on YouTube? Those are some of the intentions that they had. But then what has happened is when they came up, they were at a point that they were not able to get funding. All right, they were not able to get funding at all, and they realized how hard it is to maintain themselves. They ended up joining political organizations. All right, they ended up joining political organizations in order to get logistics. And when they joined those political organizations, then their focus basically swapped and were consumed by the agenda of those political organizations. And that has actually saved the day, because some of these political organizations ended up going in to participate in what is called the Revitalized Transitional Government of National Unity, and they took along those boys. All right, but here is the problem. Well, there are some boys who have refused to go in, and they maintained their position still outside, and are sitting under what is called holdouts, those political organizations who are holdouts. Now, if the state allows such kind of things happening in the equatorial area to continue, what I am afraid is that it will again rejuvenate a situation where some units from the Equatorial boys would start erupting. And if people within the equatorial communities who don't like the situation right now figures out that, oh, you know what, if we had actually financed those boys, maybe those boys wouldn't have joined other political organizations, but maintained safety of our areas. So that would actually be a recipe for these communities to change their ways of thinking and to start funding those kind of fighting units that are going to erupt. And when they start funding those kind of fighting units that are going to erupt, then what we are basically going to see amongst the nation is that we are going to see various fighting units being armed in order to resist cattle rustlers occupying their areas. So basically the same atmosphere that we have seen with communities like the Murle and the Launwer, the Dinga of Bor, where you find a group of fighting units sometimes clashing with each other, and the government does not have any formula to contain that, be developed all the way in the Equatorial Area. The Equatorians will eventually end up having all those fighting units, also young boys coming up and lobbying their funds from various places, and you never know, community sympathizers might even end up giving in some funding. And basically we are going to see also in the Equatorial Area some fighting units. So eventually the entire nation is going to be characterized by a number of fighting units just fighting each other. You know, people just fighting each other. You know, cattle rustlers coming around here, some Equatorian fighting units fighting back, you know, and they will be also fighting back. So it's just the whole nation is going to be chaotic. It's just going to be fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting. I mean, what kind of a nation is that? So basically what I am trying to say here is for the head of state to realize that these kind of policies are very destructive to what is called formulation of what is called one nation, because all we are seeing is the communities now going to end up having fighting units within them to carry out fights to those who are coming from what they will consider to be outside to their territories, you see. And that is not a good way to build a nation. So if that happens not to happen, what then could happen is that the people of Equatoria might end up just getting frustrated, and instead of funding fighting units, they might end up just deserting their areas and go to neighboring countries, bringing about what Carol Berger had discussed earlier into reality, or at least bringing what I had said on April 19th, that an unintentional policy could result into ethnic cleansing into reality, bringing it into reality. So brothers and sisters, this is just something very few that I would like to hint. I hope it is just more of an information that is opening up eyes to the dangers that we are basically now moving towards with such kind of practices. It's very unfortunate if it is a policy that is being played intentionally. We have seen now that J.J. Okot has been brought into the position of chief of staff. If the intention is to see into it that he sits over there and all this mess happens, so that tomorrow, next tomorrow, if really an ethnic cleansing happens, then the state will say, oh, you know what, well, J.J. Okot was the chief of staff, this is an Equatorian. How did that ethnic cleansing happen when an Equatorian is actually the chief of staff? If that policy of bringing J.J. Okot is done because there is already a pre-arranged policy here that is expected to bring about an ethnic cleansing, that is very unfortunate if the country gets to be run that way. And as I had said, that sometimes there are policies that are injected that sometimes produces unintended consequences. And if ethnic cleansing is the intention, I also want to make a hint that it might not happen that an ethnic cleansing could happen. No, it might happen that a group of fighting units could erupt and would be funded, and we will just see chaos. And the entire country may not remain stable, especially when people are working towards peace, people are talking about peace, and such kind of policies gets implemented that could actually produce chaos down the road. Brothers and sisters, this is just a short analysis that I would like to bring about that pretty much puts a heads up to what could happen that might not be good for the nation. Thank you very much. God bless you. And until we meet again in another session or a session of analysis, stay safe from COVID-19, and God bless you.